First thing we'll do is call roll. There we go. Chris.
Here.
Okay. Ashley.
Here.
Sky.
Here.
Paul.
Here.
Reg.
Here.
Karen.
Here.
Mike. Mike is not here. Eric.
Here.
Colin.
Here.
And I am here. Okay. And Sean.
Here.
Okay. We have
just
our
a quick point of order to
exist-
remind folks to make sure that you're using your mics
I
for
was-
us online friends.
Okay, thank you, Colin. I was about to say we have our original mics back in working order again. Those are welcome, so everybody please make sure you got a green light in front of you and use them. First thing we have on the order of business is approval of the agenda. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Okay, Colin. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Paul. Okay. Do we have any amendments to the motion to approve the agenda? Okay, Eric.
Yes, I moved to add a half an hour for resident speak out.
Okay, that sounds great. 30 minutes for resident speak out.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Thank you, Karen. Okay, do we have any discussion on the amendment? Okay. Reg?
Yes, it's my, excuse me, it's my understanding,
Take a
excuse me one
moment.
second.
Take a moment.
It's my understanding that normally, you know, in our meetings, we always have residents speak out, and to my surprise, it's not on the agenda, it's not here, and there are people that really want to say what, you know, have their say. So I'm hoping that we can support this motion and allow, you know, our residents to, you know, to have their say. Obviously, since there was no way for anyone to, you know, to ask or to sign up for resident speak out, I think if this passes, then we should let whoever's here and who would like to speak have that opportunity to speak. I think that's the way all of us have always been taught that that's how democracy works. So I'm pleading to my fellow board members that tonight that you allow the residents to speak. That's it.
Thank you, Reg. All right, I'd like to respond to that if you don't mind.
Please.
Just a little bit of ownership here. When this agenda crossed my email, I read through it, and my focus was mostly on, are we making sure that we've got the policies all set up?
Sure.
I read the statement on resident speak out, and I thought, that's worded a little strange. It's not the way it normally is worded, but I thought this meant that we were going to have speak out, and I own that. That is on me. When words started getting around that it wasn't included, I was wholeheartedly looking forward to this amendment and including resident speak out here. So with respect to your comment on democracy, I will tell you this. I've been on the planning board. I've been on the Board of Appeals. I have friends and neighbors that have been on the Alcohol Beverage Hearing Board. All three of those decision-making bodies in work session do not allow input from the general public. The county council does not allow input during their work sessions. I think that work sessions, when they get written down, we need to make sure that we look at our procedures and we follow our procedures, which say that we would have speak out. But we have very local examples of democracy which don't allow speak out in their work sessions. We are a different body. We actually ask for speak out during our work sessions, and that's what we're going to do.
Okay. Just like to reply that I salute you for that, and I thank you for it. However, those examples that you gave were not the Columbia Association and does not have the history of the Columbia Association. Yeah. And, you know, I want to remind everyone that it's the residents that put us here. So when the resident, you know, I'm thankful that you're going, that sounds like you're favorably going to support this, but I just want to remind everyone that our residents are the ones who put us here, and they expect us to not only represent them, but they expect to have an opportunity to speak.
Reg, I think we're running in the same direction. I said myself that this is the Columbia Association, we have different policies. You brought up democracy, I just wanted to be clear on that, so, okay?
Gotcha.
Can I make a comment?
Sean?
So clearly, we put the agenda together. In my experience, workshop meetings, and coming from out of state, but generally there's not a public comment in a workshop meeting. So I take some responsibility for that. When we looked at the HOA Act, it said resident speak out comments or public comments should be specific to the topic being discussed at the workshop meeting. So that's what we said. Well, if residents have a comment on the policies, they should just submit them in writing. We didn't think there would be that many comments on the policy. So yes, I take some responsibility for that as well. The goal was not to limit resident speak out. It was really just to have an efficient workshop meeting to discuss policies and consolidation of those policies. So.
Okay. Do we have any other discussion or comment on the amendment?
Yep, Colin and me have our hands raised.
Okay, go ahead, Ashley, then Colin.
No, Colin was first. Go ahead, Colin.
Okay.
Actually, Sean just said exactly what I was thinking. I mean, if there are folks in the room, I'm interested in hearing their residents speak out. I just want to make sure that, and I don't know if this would be, I think Eric made the motion, right?
Yes.
I don't know if it would be a friendly amendment, Eric, but if we limited the scope of resident speak out to be what's on tonight's agenda, which is board policies, I don't know if you would consider that.
That's fine.
Okay.
I wouldn't accept that.
I wouldn't accept that.
I'll decline the.
Just so I'm clear on that, Eric, could you tell me which way are you on that?
I'll decline the friendly amendment. We'll take a vote.
All right, thank you. I had Ashley's comment. We'll take a vote. Ashley?
Yeah, actually, it's funny. Colin ended up basically saying the same thing that I was going to ask in terms of the scope being around the policies, given that this is specifically a working session. So that was really what I raised my hand for. But I did want to comment on Reg saying something about the residents who put us here. I do think with a decent amount of the board members, there was no voting. It was just people filling a position that was available, and it was an uncontested election. So I do agree. There are a lot of residents that vote and participate in our elections, and that's how many of the board members ended up here. But some of it's just, the kindness out of volunteering for the space that was available, since nobody else in the community was willing to take these roles.
Okay. All right, I think we're going to call the question at this point.
Running unopposed.
Yeah, I didn't understand what you meant.
I don't know. All right. Here we go. Sky,
We're voting on
the
a
amendment,
half hour of residents speak out on
30
any
minutes.
topic.
30 minutes of resident
Yeah.
speak out, yes.
Yes,
Yes? Paul?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Eric?
Yes.
Colin?
Sorry, my mute button went away. Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Ashley?
Sure.
Yes, and I will say yes too, so that is 9-0-0. The amendment passes. I have one further amendment I'd like to make to the resident speak out, or one more amendment to the agenda. We had a number of people who wrote their input in accordance with what was published. And I talked with Sean and Julia, and Julia has graciously offered to read their comments into the record here tonight. And I'd like to make the motion that we allow that to happen. If somebody's here who would like to speak their mind in person and they also submitted, I don't want to do this twice. I think that would be an overemphasis. So those here in the room would have to choose which one they would like to do. But I certainly would like to give voice to those who wrote in.
I'll second your motion, Bill.
Thank you, Karen. Any discussion on the motion?
I guess not.
Just give me a minute to fill it out. Having no more discussion, we'll start with Eric.
What's the motion?
The motion is to allow Julia to read in submitted written testimony
Yes.
for this work session. Thank you, Eric. Colin? Sky,
Yes.
Paul,
Yes.
Reg,
Yes.
Karen,
Yes.
and I vote yes. 900. We have unanimity. All right. Motion passes. Any other amendments to the agenda? Now, we would not vote on the main motion for the agenda. Eric?
I'd like to make another motion.
Yes.
I'd like to strike 4. I'd like to strike item 4 because we basically got a 470-something page packet. It's really very difficult to parse through. It divides policies into various buckets of.
What's the motion?
The motion is to strike item 4.
Yeah, I'll second it. You're saying let's table it?
I'm saying strike it from the agenda.
Okay. Sky, item 4 is the discussion of policies, which was the reason for calling the meeting. That's what Eric's asking to amend the agenda for.
And you want to delete item 4
Yes.
on the agenda?
Okay.
The issue is in the packet.
Can we have a second?
Karen's got the
We have
second.
I second it.
And the reason here is we got a 476-page packet. We got a whole bunch of policies in there. Not all the policies. There are actually some policies missing from the packet. And it divides the policies that says these are obsolete, or suggests these are obsolete. These should become staff policies. But there's no rationale in the packet. It's hard to determine why these policies are determined to be obsolete. These policies should be staff policies, and it's also hard to figure out why are there missing policies. Why are there some policies on the books that aren't in the packet? So I think this information needs some work. I think this process needs some work. So I would like to see this go back to staff and
All right.
have this reorganized.
All right.
Sky was before me.
Here's how we're going to go. Okay, Sky, and then we'll go Karen, and then we're going to go Paul, and we're going to go Reg. And then I'm going to come over and, Ashley, I see your hand up there. I'm going to get to you. Is that all right?
Yep.
All right. Sky.
It's my understanding that that's a purpose of the meeting tonight, to explain all that, and that John will be doing it during the meeting.
Okay. All right. Karen.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to reiterate and add to what Eric just said is the first thing is that we got this large dump of documents, and I don't want to discount the work that John and his team did because I think they've been putting a lot of effort into this. However, the pages aren't numbered. So it's very hard to scroll through and figure out where you are when you're trying to look at those first top pages. I don't know what else to call them, the resolutions that John has prepared, and then figure out where the policies are. And then as I'm going through the policies, some of the pages are missing. So there's incomplete information in there. And again, I'll agree with Eric, there's no rationale as to why we should make some obsolete and others not. And I'd like to see that documented better. So I would like to see this, I'd like the staff to take this back, organize what they've got, put page numbers on there, so that when we go to review everything, we can kind of move through the document a little bit easier, like if there are bookmarks and things like that. So that's what I'm asking for tonight, because I don't think the way the document is now, I don't think that we can actually have a real discussion about it.
Thank you, Karen. Paul.
I'll just say, I think that's the purpose of having the discussion, is to talk through some of these issues and go back to staff with what we might need from them, and also just to hear what the information is being presented in front of us. I think, I mean, a discussion is just that. It's just to talk through the issues, talk through the items in the agenda, and move forward from there. I don't think it would be wise to just end the meeting and not even start discussing the policies that we wanted staff to present to us. And anyways, that's just my bit.
All right, thank you, Paul. Reg?
So I'm going to be honest with you. I've been trying to read through all this between my regular duty days and off time. I'm trying to read through it, and I haven't finished reading through all of it. That's my honest confession to you all. But the thing is, I do think, as I've gone through it and tried to co-locate and try to coordinate and see what's going on, where things are related to each other, I'm actually having a hard time doing that because it was just difficult to pour through. And I know John's done a fantastic job. There's the analysis and things that I'm reading is excellent. I just think to be fair, that we need to be able to look at something that we could all say, okay, this is here and this is over here, and it all makes sense. It's logical. It's got page numbers. And that's what's missing for me, and I really am, and I'm not stupid. I know what I'm reading, but it's, you know, if we're gonna do this correctly. If someone from my staff had brought me this and said, here we go, you know, I wouldn't get mad. I'd just tell them, hey, take it back, organize this a little bit better so that I can understand what I'm reading. That's all.
Okay, Ashley?
Yeah, I think it's irresponsible for us to continue punting topics to the next term of the board. And a discussion is exactly that. It's a discussion. We don't have to take a vote on certain things that, you know, majority board members feel uncomfortable with. And we also still have half an hour of resident speak out to get through. So I'm hoping that we're actually going to get some work done in our meetings. I think it's silly for us to continue postponing.
Okay, all right. I had a quick comment, and I'll come right back to you, Eric. Eric, Karen, back when we were all on the Board Operations Committee together, the two of you asked for this topic to be done.
Absolutely.
You asked that we put this together and we arranged this meeting, and we did all the work, and John did an awful lot of work to put this together to have this meeting. And here we are, moments from discussing it, and you've asked for us to not discuss everything that we worked for months. And I'd just like a little more explanation than there's not enough page numbering. Could you explain to me what's really going on?
So I'll take a crack at that. So I feel this packet is missing two major things. One, it doesn't have all the policies. There are policies that are missing from this packet that should be part of the discussion. The one that pops out of my mind is the compensation policy. It's not in here at all, and it should be part of the packet. I'm guessing if I found that, there's probably other policies that are missing. So I think we need to make sure that all the policies that are part of CA are accounted for. The second thing that is essential is a written rationale for every single suggestion here. So there are recommendations to make some of these policies staff policies. There are recommendations to basically say that these policies are obsolete. But without that rationale, it's hard for me to figure out how to deliberate on this. I think, and I realize that John's probably prepared to give us a rationale for 100+ policies, but it'd be nice to be able to be prepared and understand that rationale going into this meeting. So it's without those two things, it's hard for me to basically productively deliberate over this.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll answer for myself too, because I absolutely do want us to work through these policies. I'm not trying to delay this just to make a point. What I'm saying is we need to do this the right way. And with all the information that's missing that Eric just outlined, and I do think that there's a lack of transparency here, and it's just the overall confusion. And I would like to give the residents more time to actually read through what we're going to do. So that's why I would like to see this be much better organized for a much more productive discussion. And I'm not discounting the work that's gone on, Bill. And yes, I absolutely want this work to be done. I think it's critical to the board's work that we get these policies, that we understand what our policies are, that we follow them, that they're on a life cycle so that we review them at regular intervals. But I don't think that what we've been given puts us where we need to be to have that discussion.
Okay. Colin?
I would like to call the question.
Speak up there, sir.
Call the question?
Yes. Oh, you called a question. Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let me make sure I restate the question here. Just so everybody's clear, the question or the motion made by Eric, second by Karen, is to strike item 4 from the agenda. That item is the discussion of organization and consolidation of board policies. Rich?
Could you repeat it one more time?
Yes, the motion is to strike item 4 from the agenda. Item 4 reads, discussion of organization and consolidation of board policies.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Karen?
Yes?
Eric?
Yes.
Colin?
No.
No. Chris?
No.
No. Ashley?
No.
No. Sky?
No.
Paul?
No.
And I will vote no. So that is 6 against, oh, I'm sorry, 3 for, 6 against, and no abstentions. The motion to amend the agenda to strike item 4 from the agenda fails. All right. Now call the question on the main agenda as amended to include 30 minutes of resident speak out and to allow the reading in of material submitted by residents. Everybody clear on that? Okay. Ashley?
Reading in the minutes, yes.
This is the main motion, Ashley.
Sorry, state it back to me.
The main motion is to approve the agenda amended by number 1, allowing 30 minutes of resident speak out, and 2, second amendment, to read in material submitted electronically to the board for tonight.
Yes, the whole thing, yep.
Yes. Sky?
Yes.
Paul?
Yes.
Reg?
Yes.
Karen?
Yes.
Mike? Oh, I'm sorry, Mike's not here. Eric?
No.
Thank you. Colin?
Yes.
Yes, and I will vote yes. So that'll be,
I also vote yes.
sorry, Chris, 8, 1, 0.
Ranger.
Yeah.
I owe you a soda. My apologies. All right. Motion is approved. All right. We will now, Julia, would you be ready to go with reading in?
So I have on my list for remarks, if anyone's here, you can come speak instead. Would that work?
Sure.
Okay, great. First on my list, I have Renee Dubois. All right, great. So I'll go ahead and read the remarks from Renee Dubois of River Hill. Upon review of the board package for the March 13th work session, there is a resolution to declare the resolution regarding assessed valuation for annual charge approved on March 22nd, 2001 obsolete. Was this policy superseded by another policy? Or because the restrictive deed, Article 2, Section 2.01 states, equal to a specified number of cents, parentheses, not to exceed 75 cents, close parentheses, for each $100 of the then current assessed valuation, exposes the homeowners to an unmanageable increase in the assessment. Please forward a copy of the relevant board policy covering the assessment calculation and the board policy requiring the board of directors to approve the assessment rate and assessment increase cap. Until this documentation can be made available to the homeowners, the matter should be tabled. All right, next I have Kat Wee. Would you like to make your remarks in person?
Yes.
All right. And
I'm actually written
Kat,
about.
Kat, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
Can you hear me?
Yes, yes. I just wanted to make sure, as part of this resident speak out, we have 30 minutes allotted. I just want to
I'm
go with
really
the traditional
quick.
3 minutes time for each individual, just so we understand that.
Yeah.
All right?
I can easily do it in 3 minutes.
Thank you. Welcome.
I had written about resident speak out being deleted, which is against your policies, even for a work session. But instead, I'm going to read the response I got from one of your CA board members, which is Michael Libershich. Hi, Kat. Yes, your outrage comes through loud and clear, but your email is based on a fantasy. As you know, you are writing to the board of directors, a group of people elected by each village in a democratic process. There will be elections again next month. CA continues to function democratically. Resident Speak Out is still part of every regular board meeting, although I wasn't part of the committee that set up this Thursday's gathering. It's my understanding it is a work session opposed to a regular meeting. So you don't know your own policies. That's aside from me, on a very specific banal topic, so policy is banal. The committee decided to collect resident input in written form rather than hold a verbal comment session. Again, I wasn't part of that decision, but that's my understanding of it. Constant efforts to manufacture outrage over routine procedural matters or technocratic disagreements does nothing but harm the community and deter more people from getting involved. Democracy is not deferring to whoever expresses the most outrage at any given moment or who yells the loudest. Mike Galibersuch, Columbia Association Board of Directors, Owen Brown. Just want you guys to hear the contempt in that. Patronizing and honestly, like straight up obnoxious. I wouldn't talk to anyone like this, including my dog. Thank you.
All right, Kat, just really quick. Ms. Wee, just,
the question.
does Mr. Galibersuch in his communication with you identify as him speaking for himself?
Oh, of course.
Okay, I just want to make sure because I don't think that reflects the board, and I kind of agree with some of the things you said there. All right.
All right, next on my list, I have Catherine Rathburn. All right, great, I'll go ahead. So Catherine Rathburn from Wild Lake. On March 7th, 2025, Bill Santos, board chair, sent an email to the CA board and CA management containing the agenda for the board meeting scheduled for March 13th, 2025 at 7 p.m. This agenda does not include a resident speak out. Instead, item 3 states the residents who wish to send comments to the board may do so through the website. And then I said, Julie Duran stated in an email, we will read all submitted remarks for the record at the beginning of the meeting. The agenda provides 1 minute for item 3, so clearly these comments are not going to be read out. Elimination of resident speak out is a violation of both CA policy and the Maryland Homeowners Association Act. I am asking the Columbia Association Board of Directors to abide by their own policy and the laws of the state of Maryland and include resident speak out in this meeting. If the board votes to approve this agenda as written, I ask that the vote of every board member be recorded individually. And then noted the policy as posted that says, at the beginning of every meeting and work session, community members are welcome to participate in resident speak out, where you can share your thoughts, ideas, and perspective on matters facing the CA board. And then the HOA Act says that homeowners association meetings are subject to item 3 of this item and to reasonable rules adopted by a governing body. A governing body shall provide a designated period of time during a meeting to allow lot owners an opportunity to comment on any matter relating to the HOA. And then during a meeting at which the agenda is limited to specific topics or at a special meeting, the lot owner's comments may be limited to the topics listed on the meeting agenda. Next on my list, I have Joel Hurwitz.
Joel Hurwitz, I live in Harper's Choice, speaking for myself. First, as you just heard, the HOA Act requires that you have it. So all the discussion about what's under the Open Meetings Act in this state is irrelevant. And as I help print out it's your policy at the top of the page for resident speak out, which you ironically violating at your policy meeting. Regarding the document, I can't believe that General Counsel in his past jobs would have allowed a 476-page document without an index or table of contents. The fact that Bob Dover read the whole thing and wrote his 12 pages, I don't know when he slept because I barely read it. So, Bob, it's great that you did all that. I wasn't going to try to understand all this. Your approach is wrong to start with. As I tried to say months ago, you should really deal with the obsolete, superseded ones, cull them out, and then you have a smaller pool to deal with. Don't lump everything together into different pots. Make it smaller, and then everybody can deal with it without trying to figure out what pot you want to put it in. In my comments, which I assume you've gotten, part of the problem is you've got to deal with the references in this county code to what authority, when it says Columbia Association, is that a staff person, is that the president of the board. And without some direction from the board, I don't believe that a staff person has any authority to speak for CA under this county code. How much time do I have?
Minute left.
Regarding your missing policy on the Columbia Association operational policy for voting in village community association elections, I didn't find it. I've linked my blog post. I think I've shared it with you. Sean hasn't heard it. I don't find anything wrong with the policy, except the first paragraph. It makes no sense. Nobody understands what it means. And nobody understands what villages follows. And you have kept sending votes to River Hill in the past several years where you have to be a human person over 18 years old to vote. I go through the analysis that only 4 of the villages do you have the right to vote in, because the other villages, you either have to be a human or CA's property is excluded because it is open space, or it's excluded because it specifically says that a lot does not include CPRA land. Therefore, you shouldn't be voting those things.
Joel, if you could just wrap up, please.
As I said, that's policy it's missing that you should be fixing.
Thank you. All right.
Questions?
Any questions? Very good. Thanks again, Joel.
All right, I have Nicole Gates from Wild Lake next on my list. All right, I'll go ahead. It is important for our voices to be heard. Although the power of the pen is very important, the power of the voice is equally or more powerful. Things get lost in translation, so I beseech you to bring back the literal voice of our community. Thank you, Nicole Gates. Next, I have Brian England from Hickory Ridge. He said, although I understand it's in your rights to restrict resident speak out, I think a little more notice would have been nice. Recently, I wrote to Sean on this issue after the meeting on February 27th. At the meeting, no CA residents spoke believing that the CA was more than a grounds maintenance, recreation, and entertainment organization. They thought that the CA board meeting was the venue where they could solicit support. Sadly, they were wrong and they wasted their time. The role of CA should be clearly defined and should include oversight and governance as recommended in CA's 2014 Newtown zoning briefing paper. Next, I have Sharon Boyes. All right, I'll go ahead and read her remarks. Sharon Boyes from Harper's Choice. Thank you for the opportunity to comment on the proposed changes to certain CA policies. The agenda packet has over 400 pages of materials to read, try to cross-reference, absorb, and comment on, and I propose you either go back to the drawing board or delay this discussion tonight until after the election in April. This will give the community and the new board members time to review and understand the reasons behind the proposed changes. There seems to be a common theme among some of the policies that are under review. These are the policies that involve transparency, notification, inclusion, participation, the preservation of open space, and the rights of residents who pay dues to a homeowners association. These policies include item 38, process for responding to residents who speak out. Item 41A, public input on CA projects. Item 52, motion regarding residents speak out at board work sessions. Item 48, public process for large-scale project planning and implementation. Item 18, business and industrial park open space policy. In March 1987, CA adopted a policy for maintenance of open space within business and industrial parks. That policy includes several references to trees and forested areas, such as, quote, for natural areas, the policy states that the maintenance program will be directed towards preserving the property and keeping it in an undisturbed state. Quote, trees located in Columbia Association-owned wooded and natural areas will be left undisturbed, end quote. Although allowance is made for removal of trees that are a threat to public safety and private property. I am opposed to the board making changes to a platform of policies that will directly limit preservation and participation. Thank you for your consideration. All right, and then next on my list, I have Andrea Levinson. All right, I'll read their remarks. Andrea Levinson, River Hill. I'm very disturbed that CA is even considering handing over governance of the 5 types of policies. I respectfully request that you do not hand over any policies to the CA staff. The CA staff is accountable to the CA board, which in turn is accountable to the people of Columbia. The staff should not be governing these policies. Please vote to keep these policies governed by the board. Thank you very much. All right, send of the written remarks.
That's all the written remarks. Do we have any other residents in the audience? Amy?
I do have to admit that I did not prepare remarks because I didn't expect to speak tonight.
We would love to hear some extemporary, extemporaneously remarks you have prepared.
Thank you.
Just give me your name and village, and we'll give you 3 minutes, okay?
My name is Amy Bennett, and I am a resident of the Long Reach community, and I'm also a Long Reach board member. I'm here speaking on my own behalf this evening. I just want to point out, you guys created this situation about residents speak out. At the last board meeting, 4 of you voted against residents who were sitting back here. They were here, they were ready to speak, and you were ready to deny them. That's not Columbia. So I want to raise that issue. You created this, and there's a lack of trust because of your trying to silence people last meeting. Second thing I'd like to speak about, and that is the resident speak out policy. I am terrified about what you guys are going to do with the resident speak out. Bill, you said almost in your first meeting that you wanted 1 resident speak out a year, a big one. That's not good enough. We have the right. I've been paying money here for 60 years, 56 to be exact. We have the right to be heard. Don't ever try to silence our voices because it won't work. So I'm asking you, and Bill, I want to thank you for your statement at the beginning of the meeting and clarifying how this policy or this decision was made. But the bottom line is you created a lot of angst in the community that did not need to happen. Thank you.
All right.
Questions?
Anything?
Please listen,
Yeah.
please, no. Listen and hear us.
Yes.
Because listening's only one part of it.
Amy, if you just have a moment, I completely agree with you. Of the 25 years I've been here, 22 of them have been on that side of the table, and I've been paying along all the way too. I just want to clarify one thing. The first year I was on the board, I asked that we hold, in addition to meeting resident speakouts, additional speakouts where the only topic on the agenda was letting people talk. It was not only, it was in addition. So I just wanted to clarify.
I thank you for that clarification, but
Yeah.
I think I did go back and read it, Bill, and it did say 1 a year.
No, I'm pretty
But I
adamant about that.
accept your clarification regardless of what was said.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming out tonight.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Mr. Dover, I see you in the back. Would you like to come up?
Thanks, Bill. Hi, everyone. I also didn't expect to speak tonight.
Just name and village just really quick.
Bob
'cause we're-
Dover, Long Reach Village.
Thank you.
I'm a little shocked that we don't have my written comments. I had no intention of making you read 12 pages of comments, trust me. I was going to stop that real quick. But I did send them to everybody, and I sent them by email, and I submitted them through the website. So I'm kind of surprised that I wasn't, those comments didn't come up. Second, most of those comments had to do with specific policies and my opinion on them, and I realize that's sort of outside of what we're doing tonight, and that's fine. But my major issue has to do with what Reg and Karen and Eric brought up is the package, the lack of cross-referencing. Joel, thanks for noticing that I haven't slept in several days, because you're correct. The lack of cross-referencing, presumably, in order to get together this package, which clearly took a lot of work, they had to look at each policy, they had to make a decision on it, they had the rationale in their head, It's not that difficult to just write it down while you're there. And for most of them, my guess is the rationale is a single word. You don't have to write paragraphs about it. You just have to say, this one is redundant. This one has been replaced by a later one. But there is a package of them that are under the umbrella of staff made a judgment. And so I think they should be split out, the rationale should be provided, and I think the board can dispense with the one-word ones in 5 minutes, but there should be discussion about the staff made a judgment one, and, and that's why I think the package is really unmanageable, not just for the residents to read, but to discuss. Just going through one by one and talking about them, they can be categorized. There are 7 or 8 different rationales, and 6 of them can be categorized and dispensed with immediately. So that's what I hope to see before you get into the discussion, because it's going to make the discussion go so much easier. So thanks for letting me speak.
Thank you. Any questions? I got that in before somebody said that. Bob, just really quick, did you get my response to your email?
I haven't checked email since earlier this afternoon.
Okay, I think I sent it like 2 nights ago, but.
Oh, that one, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. That was very nice, acknowledging, thanking me. I like, Kat got an email from Michael that was pretty confrontational.
All right. Eric has a question for you.
Clarifying question. So are you basically telling us that some of these buckets are subjective and others are objective? So some of these decisions are objective, and I'm going through I was going through the packet also, and I spent a fair amount of time trying to decipher it. And could you give us some help? I'm not sure if you get any insight into what you think is an objective rationale versus a subjective one.
But yes, and I'm using the words that are at the top of the checklist for the deletions, and it says, I forget the exact wording, but it says policies that are redundant or, for whatever reasons, the small words. But then it said, or that have been determined to be not advisable. And there was another word, but it was something in not advisable. That sounds like a subjective term. It's not simply, oh, the policy was passed in '87, but now we have a different policy passed in 2020, and it's superseded. But it's somebody made a judgment that it wasn't necessary. Necessary was the other word. I kind of want to see. I would think you would want to see the rationale behind why you think this is not necessary before we eliminate it. And so I think those should be split out.
All right, thank you. I'm going to let Reg go, and we can come back to you, Eric.
Okay. Hey, Bob. You mentioned that you got a letter from Michael?
An email.
An email? And was it basically in the same tone as Kat's?
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, don't feel bad, because actually he sent one to my village on me, referencing me and basically calling me a liar and misleading my village. So don't feel bad. But
I replied to it, and I copied all of you on my reply.
Okay. I'll have to go back.
Because it had many inaccuracies, not just the tone, but it had many inaccuracies.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Eric.
So basically clarify. So basically, the words in the resolution about outdated policies include obsolete, outdated, redundant, superseded. Those sound objective.
Correct.
And then we have and/or no longer necessary or advisable, and those sound subjective.
That's correct. I'm sorry, I didn't have that one on the top of my head. You have the advantage of a computer.
I've got a computer here, so that helps.
Very good. Okay.
Thanks.
Bob, thank you very much. All right. Is there anyone else? Any other residents? All right. I think that concludes our resident input session or section of the meeting tonight.
How much time did that take?
That was 45 minutes. Amy, we're going to just a really quick.
I just want to thank the board for overturning the decision not to have residents speak out. That says a lot to me. So I thank you.
All right, thank you. Very good. All right. Thank you all for coming out tonight, and we will endeavor to do better in the future. Okay? All right, on to our main topic. Sean?
Yes, so the board had asked about reviewing existing policies for consolidation or, sunsetting. John Kuchno and his staff have worked diligently to go over a number of the policies. He's presented those in the packet with some proposed resolutions. There's no voting required of the board tonight, but it's really just a discussion and a review. So with that, hand it over to John.
All right, thank you, Sean. Let me put this on.
I know.
There we go. So the idea here was to bring these policies to the attention of the board and for you all to make a decision. That it's your decision. So whether you decide they're advisable or not, that's not the staff's decision, that's your decision. Whether they're obsolete, that's your decision. Whether they've been superseded, that's your decision. Okay? So we have spent a tremendous amount of time going through these policies. I can't tell you how disorganized this was. And this has existed over many, many years. Okay? It was an effort just to find the policies, and we think we found most of them. The fact that not some is in there, I've heard one, it's apparently not in there. We've attached everything we found, okay? If it's not there, it's because we didn't find it. So I apologize if that's a problem, but I can tell you we spent a lot of time looking and we put them in. The idea here was to give some degree of organization and consolidation, because to date and what exists presently is disorganization. What we'd ultimately like to do is to make it a manageable group of policies that you as the board can readily reference, cross-reference, put it online, and that residents can reference, so that if they pick a word, they could go to it. I can tell you in the current state of policies, we don't have that. So what we're trying to do is make it user-friendly. And the way to do that is we have to shrink the number. There are way too many policies that, things from the 70s, 80s, that frankly, some of them, I don't know what happened to them, but I know we don't follow them, okay? We can go through them one by one. But what we're trying to do is bring them to your attention, and we didn't expect any votes tonight. This is to give you some things to talk about and decide what you want to do. I know the next follow-up to this is on the April 24th agenda for the board, the board meeting. So basically gives you more than a month to go through and decide what you want to do.
All right, thank you, John. I think we have a few questions. Karen.
Yeah, John, so first of all, I do want to say thank you for all the work that your group has put into this. But I don't know that we'll be ready to vote on this or make any decisions about this at the end of April. I think that there's so much in here. I honestly, I'd like us to get through, since we're going to proceed anyway, I'd like us to get through tonight. But are you how are you proposing to, and I guess I'm asking, are you planning to facilitate how we go through these? That's what I'm expecting. And how are you planning to help us figure out where these are? So for instance, you've got things up here that in the front of the document, you've got some resolutions. And then it says you've got, on that very first resolution, if I scrolled up high enough, you've got 22 policies.
Which was the first one you saw?
It's right after the agenda in the packet.
What's the name of on top, the name of the resolution?
Is the deletion?
Deletion of obsolete.
Integration of board of directors policies. Integration. So what I want to know is, if I've wanted to see duties of directors, where is that in this packet? How do I know how to get to it? Because the very first policy that I hit, when I got through the resolutions, the very first policy I see is the affirmative action policy. And this is why I'm finding it difficult to review this packet, is because when I got it, I started just reading through it, and I was like, okay, well, let me get through that policy. What's the next policy? What is where do I find that in this stack of information? Where do I find that very first policy so I can start reviewing that? Like, it takes.
So if you want to call up, Julia, the groups, let's start with what's on top, board policies. All right, this is the list, and at the bottom of that, there's a PDF that identifies what we see that appear to be active board policies now, right? There's a chart.
Is that a directory that we could have had access to go in and look at all that stuff? That would have been super helpful. What I just saw, that was very beautiful, John. You had it all organized.
Yeah, it was in the folders and in the packet.
So that spreadsheet's, I think, page 4 or something.
I mean,
I'm sorry, where?
no, I'm asking about what you just opened, Julia, the online information. Were we given access to those?
Yeah, the folders were in, it was linked in the email and in BOD.
I apologize. I did not see that. I apologize.
Yeah, so those, there are 44 there. Those are what we identified as current board policies. Now, I'll say this with respect to any of these policies. You may disagree, and you make the decision. I mean, you can look down. If you decide you don't think it's current,
right,
pull it out. But this is what we looked at and said, we think this is a current policy.
Right, okay, John, Karen, everybody, I just want to.
I'm good.
I want to level set for everybody at home so that we're talking, and I want to make sure everybody else understands what we're talking about. We do have a document that is voluminous and has all of the policies in one single document. In our board email, there is also a link, Julia has said, and it's there, to a folder on the OneDrive for Columbia Association where board members can access an individual board policy. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, they were sent links to this, right? Yeah, yes. So what you're seeing on the screen, if you clicked on the links that you were sent, you'd have all of these things.
So we as a board have access to a policy if we wanted to at a later board date. We could go through it and search this a little easier than just going
Julia,
through individual pages of that large
Can
document.
she resend that email because I can't find it. I'm searching for it and I can't find it. Thank you.
All right. All right. I just want to make sure that everybody was on the same page and those who are watching understood what just went on. So thank you all for jumping in there.
Yeah, so if you look at the link, the first category says board policies. It has, at the bottom, it has this table, and above it, it has every one of these policies. There's a link to it. And you can go down and say, okay, the first one is 1987 donation policy. You can look at each policy.
Right.
I think this one is largely, we believe are current. So I don't know if there's much to talk about here. There might be, like the board of directors governing documents. We'll talk about that later. We may be reviewing those, but it's a current policy. There may be another policy in here that you might say, well, is obsolete, but this is the best we could do to try to narrow the scope of what we think are the active policies now. And if I will say this, if we could get down to the 44 number, it's very manageable. We could cross-reference, put them on the website, make it very easy for you and for anyone else to look through. And that's the goal.
Right.
And that's why we're trying to put them in different buckets.
And just so that I'm explicit, and then Eric, I'm going straight to you after I make this comment. The resolution on the table that we were referring to, which has the 44 documents, the purpose of that then says, now therefore be it resolved that the CA Board of Directors hereby approves the integration of the following policies into the CA Board of Directors governing documents, including the CA Board of Directors operating procedures and meetings and work sessions. So that's the focus of this. I just want to make sure that everybody listening understands that. And I'm going to go over to Eric now. Thank you.
So, as you mentioned, there are a couple of missing policies. One of them, which we heard today, was the village election policy, how CA votes in village elections. I do not see that policy in the packet. A second policy that's missing is the compensation policy. I don't see that policy in the packet. Another policy that I can't find, it may be in the packet or not, is the 3 reading policy for major motions. And the reason why I bring this up is that...
That's in the governing documents.
Okay. But the reason why I bring this up is today would be technically the first reading, and there are major policies in this packet. If we go right to April 24th, that's only 2 readings, so we would need a 3rd meeting to discuss these policies before we could take action on these resolutions.
Okay. All right, Sky.
I'm kind of lost. I'm looking at integration, and I only see 22, a list of 22 policies.
Yeah, I think the integration is the next category. There's no resolution necessarily reflective of what's an existing policy. The next category is what we've taken a group of 22, as Sky said, and what we think, again, to reduce the number is we think these are more properly identified as staff policies, and they shouldn't be board policies. We want to take those out, make them staff policies, and again, we'll reduce the number. And you may disagree, you may say, no, we think this is a board policy, but in looking at the integration policies, we think it makes sense that these really should be staff policies as opposed to board policies.
Okay, just real quick, folks, we've been looking at a lot of documents on our screens here. I have 3 board members who are online. Do we have any input or questions from our online board members?
None at this time.
Okay.
Nope, I'm clear.
All right. Thank you, guys. Just chime in whenever you need to, okay? All right.
Okay, so just as we talked about resolutions too, and I put resolutions together. Again, these are just proposals. You may decide you don't like them, but I think this proceeds along the lines of what we talked about previously in prior sessions about how do we organize these things. One is we integrate certain ones into staff policies. Second resolution is we delete obsolete policies. And yes, indeed, we made that category broad as obsolete, outdated, redundant, superseded, no longer necessary and advisable. If you don't like that language, change it by all means. You're the board. This is our word. Tried to be inclusive. If you disagree, if you think they're not, it's your decision. We laid them out here. That's fine. I will tell you, a lot of these policies, you know, there's an undated tot lot policies. I know that's not in effect. We don't use it anymore. There's a number of policies related to the Architectural Resource Committee, about 4 or 5. Well, that was to set up the Architectural Resource Committee, and it has a charter now. So we don't need 5 board policies about the because it's already in a charter. So we eliminate those. We have certain policies that are outdated. One of the comments, the first one that was read tonight, related to a policy from 2001. And the answer to that is that policy says it was specific to the budget in 2001. That's why it's outdated. I recognize that the comment went beyond that, but if you look at the policy, it says it was specific to a 2001 budget. Well, in 2025, the 2001 budget is not in effect anymore. So there may be another policy, or you may want to have a policy related to annual charge and whether it's capped, but it's not the 2001 budget. So that's the rationale. So again, all right, we went to the first category of board policies. Let's just go down the list. The second category is governing documents. Now, Eric raised a point in an email over the weekend. He says, I thought the governing documents were the deed, the charter, and I have to say when I first saw it, I think he raised an excellent point, but those are the governing documents for the Columbia Association. That's completely different from the Board of Directors governing documents.
That's what these are, Board of Directors governing documents, not governing documents of the Columbia Association. And they're different. What are governing documents of the Board of Directors? Well, they pertain to procedures for meetings. They pertain to things like resident speak out. They pertain to how you're going to have the organizational meeting and how you elect the chair and vice chair. They've been amended a few times. They're in a book that's that I have here, that the latest attempt to change, to go over the organizational documents was in 2019. And there were some changes proposed, but it was never voted on. And again, you might not be able to see the title, but it says Columbia Association Board of Directors Governing Documents. There is this, it should have been in your packet that you got at the beginning of the year when you started your term. If you look at the table of contents from those governing documents, it I think fairly reflects what this covers. The board's governing mission, the board's values, duties of directors, responsibilities of directors. There's a board evaluation of the president and CEO, operating procedures for meeting and work sessions, policy on the conduct of work sessions, guidelines for closing meetings, board dinners with community stakeholders, board committees, board operations committee role and responsibility, audit committee roles and responsibility, risk management committee roles and responsibility, procedures for the organizational meeting, process for electing the board chair and vice chair, guidelines for board members addressing operational concerns raised by residents, the policy for release of closed meeting minutes and confidential materials. All those I would categorize as how we run or how you run your meetings and information and documents related to that. So what we did with respect to the governing documents that are in the second category of the thing is we looked at certain policies that exist now that we think more appropriately belong in this category of documents. And the idea is, let's shift some of those from freestanding policies into these governing documents and incorporate those. And then when it comes time to review these documents and to decide whether you want them or these policies, you have one packet, and we won't vote on 45 different policies. You'll have one vote on the governing documents. Now, you could go through and say, I recommend that we change the 5th page of the governing documents, and you're fine. But it will be a lot less burdensome, a lot less cumbersome to the board, I think, if we shift these documents that are referenced in governing documents, put them in this packet. We will also go through and change there's some little, I don't want to say typographical things, but bring it up to date. It won't change the substance. But the idea is, let's put the governing documents together, conduct of meetings, put them all together, and then if you pass a resolution related to periodic review and sunsetting of policies, make that on a schedule, go over it once, one vote, make changes, we're done, instead of 27 votes on 27 policies.
Okay. Thank you for that additional information, John. Eric?
So how many of the policies in this list are currently in the governing documents, and how many policies, and are there any policies in the governing documents that aren't on this list?
There are, I think there's, I can't tell you the precise numbers. There is some carryover that's already in there. And in that case, I would say it's redundant to have a separate policy because they're in the governing documents. The idea is, let's make sure it's all part of the governing documents, and then we don't have that double whammy of a policy in the separate policy and one in the governing documents.
So I think it'd be helpful to, in a future packet, be able to identify what's consistent, what's constant, and what is new, what's going into the governing documents that's not in the governing documents, and what's already in the governing documents handbook, and also what's coming out of the governing documents.
Yeah, I mean, if you would, when it comes up, I mean, I don't have any problem, although I'm not sure we have a Word document on this. I mean, we could do a red line version of here's the changes that are in here. I mean, that's no problem. We may have to go
somehow scan this in, because this is from 2019, and honestly, we've had a reboot of the computer system. Whether I could find that, I don't know. But yeah, I mean, I would. No one's trying to pull a fast one here. I mean, I would redline, and you could see the changes.
Yeah, John, that document that you're referring to in that binder does exist in electronic form. I know that. That's for sure. The other documents, I guess we have them in PDF. We might be able to OCR some of those and work that out.
I mean, that would be great.
Yeah, it's something to look into for sure.
And again, the idea is we're trying to make this manageable. I mean, it's just, we got to get a handle on this. And I think one way is, it pertains to the meetings and how you run your meetings and, the procedures.
Yeah.
Let's put them in there.
I think there's unanimity around this table and probably all over the land that we would like to have a concise, easily, indexed set of procedures. That's definitely a place of agreement for everybody. All right.
Okay, and, and again, if you look at the link that Julia sent, at the bottom, there's a chart that has all these policies that cross-reference to what we call the board governing documents, and each policy is there. And I recognize this was a tremendous packet. Just imagine what we had to go through. Like, this is what emerged. Like, I can't tell you how many binders we went through, how many dusty closets to get to this point, all right? You've got kind of the Reader's Digest version of there is one. And honestly, what we thought in putting together this packet was we wanted to put it out there so that everybody could refer to the policies. And I recognize it's hard, but there is an order based on what was in the link, and we thought it better to include the policies so that you could cross-reference if you want to. And again, you're the boss. It's up to you. If you want to put them in a different spot, you disagree, that's your vote, your prerogative. I'm putting it out here for your consideration, something for you to think about. Okay, didn't expect tonight you're going to have any vote. I'm just giving you some ideas. You decide what you want to do. You got at least a month before it's on the agenda again. I recognize it's a busy month, but, there's plenty of time to look it over. And I think if you follow this guide that was in the link, it makes a little more sense. All right. Next, we have policies designated as obsolete. And I think this was the largest group because I think some of these were, as I mentioned, the various categories: obsolete, outdated, redundant, superseded. I'll give you an example. The affirmative action policy, which was something passed, in this 1990s? 78.
Earlier.
78.
Earlier.
Yeah,
Okay.
I was 91 was in my head on that one.
So I'll tell you, in the legal world, affirmative action is not the word used these days, right? And we have a DEIB committee. It's in the strategic plan. There are certain procedures in there that are not followed. I don't know when they stop, but I know I've been here a little while, not that long. We don't do them, at least since I'm here. So it's when it went away, I don't know. I know we have a whole different system now with the DEIB committee. We have a strategic plan that references it. My view is, we've got something that takes place. It's obsolete. It's outdated. That's why this is on the list. There's a list. The fourth meeting down here is policy is package plan for council members. Again, this goes back to 1981 about we don't even have package plans anymore, right? Why do we need that? We don't need that policy.
We should bring it back. It was a good plan.
Yeah, maybe. And you may decide, again, in some of these things, you may decide, hey, and again, it's food for thought. That makes sense. Let's update it or do a different policy. Again, that's up to you. We want to bring it to your attention. This group, and I won't go down to everyone because I would argue that most of these things, either we don't do anymore, they expired by their own time limit. They were time limited. If you remember back last fall, the year before, we eliminated 13 policies, the Columbus, right? We got rid of the easy ones. Some of these are kind of in the same category. Some of these are like legal representation for the ARC. Well, that's in the charter. The process for public input, it's a different process now. You may decide you want to change the process, but I can tell you we don't do it anymore. So we don't need a policy that's old and we don't do it. So that was the idea behind the deletion of obsolete policies. Again, you can call it whatever you want. Like we have certain ethics policies on there. Well, those were the old versions. Like they're superseded by the version that was passed in 2023. That's why that's on there. I mean, it still exists. It says it's a policy, but to be sure it's not there, we say it's obsolete. It's gone. That's the basis of these things.
I'm raising my own hand. Eric, do you mind if I go first? You've had a couple of turns at the wheel there. Thanks. And then I'll come right to you. With respect to the word deletion, would it be possible that these policies could be archived?
Yeah.
And then rendered like inert, but they are at least kept in some repository that at one time?
Well, maybe it's, that was not an appropriate word, because if you look at be it further resolved at the end, it says they will archive these policies to preserve a historical record, ensure they no longer, so we would ensure they're no longer acting in force, but we will archive them.
You see where I'm going with that, so.
Yeah, absolutely.
So,
And so, yeah, maybe we can change the title to it's a deletion,
Archive.
disposition or something of obsolete policies, but it does call for archive these things.
yeah, that,
Policies designated for archiving, something like that.
yeah. Well, we'll work on the wording on that, but I think that is much more amenable than, the deletion sounds entirely final and unreversible. Not that we want to reverse and take an archive piece and say, hey, we're going to have a pet rock policy again.
Absolutely, point well taken. And again, this is something that we came up with just to give you.
This is part of the discussion here,
Right.
yeah.
You change it as you like. You vote on it, you make amendments. I know you guys like to talk. You'll talk about it a lot, so.
Thanks. All right. Eric?
So I want to reiterate the concern from River Hill on the policy, which has a resolution in it that says the annual charge is based on 50% of the property value. And I feel like if we make this policy obsolete, where in our policies, governing documents, does it say that we're assessing based on 50% of the property value? Does it jump up to 100%? What happens to that resolution? Because there's a very specific resolution in that policy.
No, there's not it's a whereas clause, but it's not in the resolution itself. It says whereas this budget for whatever. So I don't include that as part of the policy. But again, when I read that policy, I read something pertaining to a 2001 budget. That's gone. And so if there's not a policy in there related to 50% of the property value, pass one. I mean, that's what you're here for. If you want to do it, do it. I mean.
So I think that's the type of thing that, yeah, maybe the rest of that policy is obsolete, but we're clearly following that resolution.
If you want to take it out, Eric, that's why I brought it up. That's fine. Vote on it. If you want to keep it in effect, that's your prerogative. I mean, you're in charge.
So I'd certainly recommend keeping that resolution in effect one way or another, whether it's we take that resolution out, make it its own resolution, or we just keep that policy as a regular CA policy.
I'd just like to bounce off of that a little bit, just provide a little more context. You have to remember where we were, time and place in 2001. I believe at that time, property values on the east side of Columbia jumped up 30%, and CA sent sent bills to everybody that increased their property assessment by 30%. And if you look at our covenants, it says you have to use the highest value of the property to calculate the bill. That got a lot of people upset, which led to this resolution, which ultimately led to a state law, which the reason why we vote on a cap and a rate every year is because the state law enacted said that any homeowners association that had more than 26,000 lot owners had to have a rate of increase that could go up no more than, I think it's 2% a year.
I think it's 3.5.
And the maximum rate that you could go up in 1 year was 10%. So there was a lot of things that happened around that particular policy. Some of them now codified in state law and along with our covenants do provide a large extent of protection. If we need to massage a little bit of the policy here or there to make that happen, that's something that we can all work on. I mean, this is a policy that's now out in the open that we're all talking about. And the goal here, I think, is not to say, do we keep it or archive it? I mean, the goal is to, what is the best policy for Columbia today? And let's figure that out and enact on that. So just a little context on it, and we'll move forward, okay? Yeah.
I guess my point is that we're obviously following it, so it's clearly not obsolete. It's clearly a current resolution. So we need to make sure that somewhere in our documents that's codified.
Well, once again, as John said, it was a policy that essentially sunsetted itself in 2001, and we have been continuing to do it, but really the policy is rendered itself ineffectual until after that budget year. So we would have to amend it in some way or form. That's my point.
Well, I'll actually read the text from the resolution. It says, and therefore be it resolved that for the assessment year commencing July 1st, 2001, the assessed valuation for purposes of computing the annual charge shall be 50% of the full cash value as determined by real estate tax purposes. So I realize the text, but I think this is important enough, and this is a policy review. I think this is important enough that in the context of this review, and this is one of the good things about doing this review is we discover these things, is that, okay, maybe this general policy should be, is obsolete, but this particular resolution should be codified.
We can find a place for it, I'm sure. I mean, I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that. I heard some stuff online. Does I have anybody online who want to make a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I had my, nope, I'm good.
Thanks, Colin. Okay. All right. Anything else here?
Okay. Yeah, I think I may have covered it partially anyway. The staff policies were I've already talked about it, the last category on the sheet. Again, these were ones that we looked at and decide they're more operational. You may disagree. Look through them. There's a list in the bottom. This, again, this is not set in stone. This was to give you something to look at, discuss over the next month, decide if you don't like it, change it. But in our judgment, these things seem to be things that are more appropriate in staff. You may disagree, and that's your prerogative. That's fine. You make the decision.
All right, we're going to go back to Eric.
So I have a problem transferring any of these policies to staff policies. These are board-passed policies. They should be board policies. And the reason why I've got an issue with this is, let's go back a couple years when we transferred our advisory committees to staff committees. And the result of that was, okay, we transferred them to staff committees, and one day their charters just got rewritten. The board didn't get prior notification. We just all of a sudden one day see all the charters rewritten, and we haven't really heard from these committees since. And my fear is if we transfer these policies, and these policies include a lot of things that are important to our residents. Like there's a couple policies in here that basically refer to the fact that residents get a substantial discount for memberships for the pools and gyms. So my fear is that if we transfer these policies to staff, then something similar will happen, like what happened with the committees, that all of a sudden these policies will get changed without our knowledge, and things that are really important to our residents, such as getting that substantial discount might just disappear. So I think it's really important that these policies remain board policies.
So like the CA team member handbook, you want to have as a board policy?
Well, I think, why don't we pick and choose some of these, because I agree with that. I don't think we need the team member handbook to be in there.
Yeah.
I wasn't aware that the team member handbook was a policy.
So,
It is.
so
Look, I will tell you that the idea behind this goes back to the board duties, what's operational and what's not. I mean, we know that you set policy, operations, that's Sean's bailiwick. But again, you may disagree, that's fine. There's plenty here to talk about and to think about over the next month. And if you decide that you want to vote on the planning replacement policy for trees or whatever, that's fine. The team member handbook, all these things, that's fine. I mean, that's up to you, whatever you want to do.
all right, Karen?
Yeah, is there a secure way, so John, I apologize that I missed this, because this is very well organized, and I do appreciate this directory out on the OneDrive. Is there a way for us to make this OneDrive accessible to residents? Because a lot of them are going through that 470-page document, and this would make it easier on them. They would like to give feedback on some of these things, and like we're talking about the tree policy. Honestly, I think we want to be very careful with some policies, because we've got some sensitivities out in the community with some of the things that we've pursued in the past. So I want to make sure that they get an opportunity to weigh in and talk to us about these policies. So I would love for us to be able to find a way to securely share this with them, where they can go in and see everything, but they don't have edit or anything like that. They can't destroy what we have in here.
Okay, all right. Eric?
So probably the easiest way to do it, I imagine that this PDF is actually a combination of a whole bunch of other PDFs. The easiest way to do this would be just create a site with a whole bunch of links, and basically group the links of, okay, these are the ones that are proposed to be obsolete. These are the ones that are proposed to be in the board governing documents. Group them all put all the links, group them all, and then just have a link to the relevant PDF. I think that'd be a lot easier for us to navigate, for the public to navigate, and then at the end just have a simple spreadsheet like we have here in front of us that also includes the rationale for why each policy is in each bin. It could be just a simple word or a simple phrase like, okay, this was superseded by this other policy. I mean, I think that would be a very simple, straightforward way of grouping everything, making it a lot easier to work with, because I'm operating off the PDF file, which is 100-something megabytes, and my browser keeps choking on it.
Okay. Sky?
I had my hand open the first time Eric was talking.
Okay, yeah, go ahead. Thanks, Ashley.
A couple of things. One, Eric, I think you are severely underestimating or undervaluing the administrative it works to do things like that. So unless it's something you're volunteering to do, I don't think it's really necessary to have a CA staff member to do it when we already have all of this in folders. And I'd raised my hand earlier when you were talking and had suggested that there was a change to the committees, unbeknownst to the board. But you and I were both on the board when that change happened. And a big reason for it was because the board slowed everything down for the committees to get anything through. So I'm a little bit concerned about making changes to policies just based off of the headlines or titles of what the policy is without getting to give decent consideration to what that actually entails and how it impacts the functioning of the board and the people volunteering their time on those committees.
Okay. Okay, Sky?
I have about 27 questions. I hope that's okay.
Well, maybe just a couple.
I want to piggyback on what Karen, basically you were talking about the period where community comments are solicited. That generally, at least in my experience, is not at the beginning of a project or a document, but after the document or the project has been sort of thought out, written out, finalized, and then it's sent out to the public for 30 days of open comments, at least. One example of that is my village's periodic review of the RAC guidelines. We work on it, and then we make it available to the public for 30 days before we finalize it. So that's something that I think we have to decide, when do we want comments from residents and whatever.
Can I just quickly respond to this guy? Can I respond?
Just so you know, Reg has been very patient, so please,
Oh,
he's
thank you,
right
Reg.
there.
Thank you, Reg. I just want to say, I actually think we're there. I think the work that John has done, we're actually where you think we should be, is that he's already taken all the policies, he's bucketed them according to his analysis and the work that his group did. And so I actually think we're at the point where we can say, hey, this is how we've bucketed everything. Let's go ahead and get feedback.
But we haven't.
Right.
As a body.
Okay, all right, Reg?
So, I'm like Karen on this. John, I didn't really see this other email or with that table. If I had, that would have made it my review a whole lot easier. I could handle it and work my way through it a whole lot better. It's much better organized when you have that table. So I thank you for that. And I'll admit, if I'm wrong on something, I'll admit I'm wrong. Yeah. And that's something all should be able to do. The other thing is that one of our board members was taking another board member to task because she had an opinion. And, all of us are entitled to our opinion. That's what we're here for, to be able to speak out, say what we have on our mind, and we should all be willing to accept that. And we used to have this little sticker that was on everybody's car, was choose civility. And I would remind everybody, we do need to continue to have civility in our activities towards each other. I heard John, and what I'm hearing from John is that he said, look, here's the policies. Go home, look at it, read it, consider you got a month to do that. And so I'm going to take it as word. I'm going to go home and take a look at this. And, he's kind of walked me through it, and I'm glad we did that now. That's another thing I'll admit, that I am glad that we kind of walked through this. And I think we need to take what's here and, really go through it and decide what it is we want to keep and what are their policies. And if we think that we want to go with the CA team members handbook, if that's what we want to do, and I don't agree with that, but if that's what we want to do, that's the board's prerogative. And he said that many times too. Thank you.
Okay, Colin has his hands up.
John, the one question I was wondering, unless I missed it in OneDrive, was the numbering system. Do you have a suggestion for that? Because one of the things, I'm hearing you talk about buckets, and I'm, the analogy running in my brain is with HCPSS, because I'm familiar with that one, where I know off the top of my head, an 8,000 series policy with HCPSS is about technology. So I was wondering if that was kind of the route you were going with the numbering system, or what?
Yeah, I mean, I'll gladly take any suggestions. I'm not that sophisticated. My idea was to number them by year of passage, and then sequentially, just so that we could put them on, and then if they were updated and reviewed, we could just change the year so that we knew they were current. But I'm open to any suggestion. My point with the numbering system is I just think it would be easier to search in when we do get to the point when they're on the website, if there was a number instead of, right now, when I'm trying to find a policy, I'm furiously going down and looking for open space. Where do I see open space here? If I knew there was an index that said this was policy number 1987-01, I could plug that in. It would be a lot easier. We just need some organization. Also, part of that would be when you take up another resolution for a policy, initially we'll give it a number, you know, and you pass it, then it has a number and it tracks that number in the future. So that was the idea. Again, I'm open to anything, whatever you want to do that's easier. I know Sky's a policy expert. If you got a better numbering system, but some numbering system would help. That was the idea.
Yes, agreed. I'm just wondering if, like, if we could identify, you know, the 7 domains or whatever that we have policies under, because I hear you about, you know, if we pass a policy tomorrow, it probably makes sense to have 2025 in the naming convention -01 if that's the first policy. But what I'm trying to get at is, I'm with you. I want to be able to search quickly. So I want to be able to type, you know, 1,000 or 2,000 if it's on open space or technology or whatever those domains we might.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, you know, maybe we make 1,000 series open space, 2,000 series fitness facilities, you know, 3,000 series pathways, whatever, divided into whatever we have, administration, personnel, do that. And we just number. So then, you know, if I'm looking for a personnel policy, it's with 4,000 something.
That sports and wellness would be the 2,000 series. I'm paying attention. So, wait, just a couple things. I was going to jump in really quick. I see Karen was next, and then I'll come back to you, Eric. First of all, I wanted to not step on anyone else. That's on me. Dewey Decimal System. Don't use that, okay?
I haven't heard that in a long time.
I tell you,
you're dating yourself.
I am. It's my week to do that. I don't know why. I wanted to maybe pivot a little bit. Karen, Eric, I think you have some comments, and I want to make sure we incorporate those. But I wanted to maybe we've been at this. It's 8:30 now. The way I see our resolutions here, and they are all works in progress, I don't want to vote on any of these at all. But I wanted to say that of the resolutions, we have 2 of them. One is on a procedure for sunsetting, and the second one is a procedure on numbering, which just came up. And I think that we should look to really get these done this board year, because they are just administrative things, and we should do all our level best to make sure that these 2 get passed this year. So if we have kind of general straw vote agreement on that, we can ask staff to help us move this along and get it on the board meeting agendas moving forward. We have 2 others which are really classification. One is integration. The other one, what was the verb that we used here? Transition. I think that maybe if we could, as a board, maybe find 10 that we agree can be integrated and or transitioned, we could do a partial resolution on some of these. Just think about that. I'm not asking for a hard and fast, but think about it. What we did call at one time delete, and we're talking about archiving in some way. This might be the heavy lift, because this is like this is the real change kind of thing. So I don't know what to do with this just yet, but I think that of the 5, we've got 2 that we should move forward on without question, and I think we got board input on that. And then these 2, I'd like to suggest that for the purpose of discussion, but I would like Karen and Eric to introduce this without allowing you to finish what John had just, and I wanted to give you a chance to respond. So Karen?
I agree with what you just said, Bill. I think we should try to accomplish what we can accomplish in this board term. Second thing is, I think John's done a lot of work here, and I actually think it's time to ask Armspeed to help him out a little bit, because we're asking for some technological support. So I think making sure that, because my desire is that we have a searchable database, right? That it's on the website, it's on the Columbia Association website, it's easy to find, that kind of stuff. And like the document that John held up earlier about board governing documents, I feel like a link to that document should be living on the same page with our smiling faces, so people can easily reference that and take us to task during resident speak out. So I agree with that. I actually think that between now and the time when we would actually vote on this, I think we actually have time to go through all of this and really understand these policies and start making recommendations. Are we allowed, my next question on that is, are we allowed to submit comments to John and copy the entire board and say this particular, because the next time we're going to discuss this is going to be more than a month out, And I could see that meeting taking forever, but right now, we really don't talk to each other in email. So, like, if I come across a policy and I'm like, I don't think this one really should be obsolete, or this one, here's the policies I would take out, I would like to be able to present that information to my fellow board members to kind of help with the conversation when we actually go to vote on these things.
How would you do that?
I don't know. I was thinking maybe, what do the lifeguards use, semaphore?
All right. I have an idea, but I'm going to let Eric and then Paul go, and I'll come back around to that.
So I agree with Karen. We definitely need the policies on the website. I think that's critical, so everybody is on the same page as knowing what policies we have. I think in order to make this work, this needs to be on 2 agendas. And that follows our 3 reading policy anyway. And I think on the next agenda, what would really help is if we have basically the spreadsheet of policies and just a simple rationale for why each policy was selected for whichever bin it was selected for. Just a very quick rationale. I think that would be immensely helpful for making this work. As far as the sunsetting policy, I actually disagree with that. I think that's fairly dangerous because I think it's important that we have a policy that says, okay, these policies get revisited every so often, but to automatically sunset them, I think is dangerous because the board passes the policy and all of a sudden it just disappears, could lead to some, without any board action, could lead to some unfortunate side effects. So I don't think that's a good idea from a board perspective. Lastly, I do want to address Ashley's concerns. Ashley was basically saying that I was suggesting that we change things, especially with regard to turning policies into staff policies. No, my position is actually keep it the same. Keep all the policies as board policies, which is the current status quo. I think things should be more constant. I don't think we should be changing board policies to staff policies. So just to clarify that, I'm not for changing for that kind of change. I want to keep board policies as board policies.
Okay, thanks, Eric. Paul, and then I'm going to go to Colin.
I was going to say, just based on discussion here, I think there'll be like multiple steps with this process. With only a month left of this sort of term, I think the first initiative should be just codifying the policies, posting them online, and having them public. Just having it organized so everyone can see it, the next board can see it, and it's all there so that I don't know what we'll do in this for the rest of this term, but at least the next group of people can at least access everything, see it, it's organized, and then they can start making decisions if that's what it ends up being. So I think, just to repeat, I think that just the organization of all of this should be probably the first thing, and it sounds like there's broad agreement across the board here. So
okay, all right. Thank you. Colin?
My question's actually a little more procedural. So I'm wondering, so our next regularly scheduled board meeting, can we amend the agenda and add this as old business, or would it be new business because this is a work session? I'm unclear about that because I just want to get stuff done. And if we have to have the 3 reading rule, fine, but that means we have to move for the next couple of meetings. So just thinking out loud.
All right. I think that we're at least discussing it now. I would think this counts as 1.
Yeah, I mean, it's listed, if you look at the agenda for April 24th, board policies follow-up is listed as old business. So I guess if you put it on the next, it would still be old business. Mm-hmm. And April 24th would be older business.
So we would have to find a balance between the 27th or the first meeting in April, right?
Yeah, so whatever. I mean, it's on there now, so if you can amend and put it on the other one too.
All right. Karen, just getting back to how we would organize this and your semaphore, which is very creative. I appreciate that. I was thinking if we could designate, I mean, if you all want to send me like your top 5s on the integration or transition lists, we can
things that we believe we can keep or things that we want to eliminate.
Things that we want to transition or integrate.
Okay.
Okay. And then if I can figure out of those top 5, if there are 4 that we want to do, if everybody picks the same 5, that makes it easy. But, you know, or just everybody give me a number of them and I'll come up with 5. And then we
We're
can.
looking for 5 for each bucket?
Well, yeah, 5 for integration and 5 for transition.
Oh, okay.
We can then debate those and at least get this ball started, start a process for, if not this board, the next board to start the road. Just one last thing, and then I'll get to you, Eric. The idea of putting all the policies out there at one time right now, I'm a little hesitant on, because I think there is so many policies, there's going to be so much input, it's going to be hard to classify all of that input. I mean,
Bill, they have the policies.
well, yeah, but I'm saying about if the public is making comments on all of these policies all at the same time, we don't have them numbered at this point.
We don't have them numbered. That's why I was saying it might be better to make, and I'm sorry, are you okay with me?
Yeah.
Okay, so I think that's why I think what John has here in the OneDrive, we should use this because they at least have a title and a date, right? Whereas in the packet that we got on Friday, it's a nearly 500-page packet.
Right.
So,
yeah.
and so they've got the policies.
Yes. Yeah. I was just talking about the public response to them. If we're considering 5 policies, definitely get the policies out that people are considering.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And do it as we're doing them so that we can get more focus on the people out in the community can be more focused. When they give us input, then there will be more focus for the input. And I think we'd get an overall better rather than trying to aggregate over months all of the comments on the commemorative bricks policy. So
we really need to, so if we give you 5 policies for integration, 5 for transition, it'd be really good if you had them by the end of next, when would Sean need them in order for Julia to include that information in the packet?
I think it's the 19th, is that correct? My math is good, even at this late hour.
Nice work.
So,
The 19th of what month?
of this month, so that we could get it in
In other
the,
words, within the next 6 days.
in the agenda for the 27th, yes. Okay, Eric, you've been very patient, thank you.
So I feel like this is jumping the gun a little bit because I feel like you're assuming that we're going to transfer or that we should transfer policies, board policies to staff policies, and I don't think that's a good idea. So I think there needs to be a much higher level discussion on whether or not it even makes sense to be transferring board policies to staff policies. I think I think the concept is very dangerous, and I don't support that concept. So I think by asking people to give you 5 policies to be transferred, well, I mean, if I don't think any of them should be transferred, would I give you a blank email? So I think that's an assumption that this board hasn't agreed to yet, and I think you're jumping the gun on that assumption. I do like the fact that we should be planning for 2 work sessions to discuss this. In preparation for the next work session, I would like to see some of the missing policies added, such as the village election policy, the voting in the village election policy, and the compensation policy added to this packet. And I'd also just like to see quick rationales for why the recommendations are the way they are, just to help me be able to provide feedback on it. Because without rationales, I'm like, okay, I'm sort of guessing why this policy is obsolete. So just a quick couple words would be helpful for me there.
Eric, I appreciate you bringing up the transition concern that you have, but I think we all agreed at one point here tonight, just the temperature of the room, I'm not holding anybody to it, but I think when the concept of the team handbook being transitioned to the staff, most people bought in on that. So I think that would be one. If there are 4 more out of the list that we have, we may come up with a win and not necessarily step on any toes at that time. And that's all that's where we are.
I'm not even sure why the team handbook is in the packet, because I don't recall ever voting on it.
All right. John had his hand up, then I'm going to
I got a text from a person who did a lot of work, and I think maybe this explains some of and what she said is these policies that will be transitioned, that these were actually staff policies that were brought to the board for approval. And they were always intended to be staff policies, but for some reason, the board approved them, but they were staff policies. and they were approved by the board. Why they were approved by the board, I don't know, but they were initiated as staff policies, and for some reason, like the team handbook, the board approved. That's what she says when she reviewed the policies.
Thanks, John. Sky?
Yeah, I don't understand why you're asking for a top 5. It seems to me that we're going to have to go through each one of these 16 and say, yes, it should be here, no, it shouldn't, and then order rank all of them. So, top 5, and what are we going to do with those 5? And what are we going to do with the ones that did not make the top 5?
Well, I think my intent, and this is open to discussion, but I think the intent would be to get the process started. There are some quote-unquote low-hanging fruit out there that could be done, and that's not to say the other 16 would go away to never be talked about again, but it would be at least let's get it started, let's have the discussion, let's build that muscle on how to review procedures, how to,
Pilot study.
well, at least a first cut, I would say it more like that. I'm going to go to Colin, and Paul, did you have your hand up?
No.
Okay, Colin?
Hopefully, I'm not jumping the gun now, but I want to thank staff for all of the hard work that they had to do to prepare for this. I think that we have actually had a really good, rich, robust conversation and debate tonight, and I think that we have some ideas about what our next steps are. I think that we call this a win, and I move to adjourn because I'm fearing that we're going to head to circular conversation soon.
Okay. Do we have a second on the motion to adjourn?
Should I do have one last recommendation?
I'll second.
Okay, so Ashley seconded.
Now we can have some
Eric,
discussion about
Just
adjourning.
really quick,
I think instead of trying to rank top 5s, I think the easiest thing to do is just let's identify the policies that are objectively obsolete, objectively superseded by another policy. I think there's dozens of policies that fit into that objective category. If we can clear those, I think that would be a huge start. Okay. And I think that would be that'd be a good goal right there.
all right. Nothing's written down for any of those things. I appreciate your comments on that. We have a motion to adjourn. Any other discussion on this? All right. Well, then, Paul, I'm going to start with you.
Yes.
Yes, okay. Reg?
Absolutely, yes.
Yes. Karen?
Yes.
Eric? Yes. Colin?
Yes.
All right. Chris?
Yes.
He said yes.
Oh, okay. Ashley?
Yep.
Yeah, I did
Sky?
say yes.
Yes.
Yes. I'll say no. No, I'm kidding. I'll say yes. Before we all leave, thank you. Big thank you to Julia for a great job reading tonight. I think you did a good job. So, all right. Thank you all. Great work session. We'll see everybody on the 27th. Please get your comments in, your lists in, so we can get everything to Julia by the 19th, okay? Thanks. We are adjourned.